Hey guys, Cryptopper here with another video. Really fun video today. Definitely a departure from my last video, which was kind of depressing. But this is really cool because there's this guy named Reid Moon. And Reid Moon is a guy, he's on Instagram, you can check him out, ReidMoon. And this guy's a man after my own heart, man. He collects really rare books. I also have some rare books in my collection as well. Ones that you just can't get, ones that you probably aren't supposed to have. But I like them. I like the history. I like all that stuff, regardless of whether it was good or bad. But he has a rare bookstore. He was in the insurance gig for a while, and then he inherited a bookstore, and he's got some of the craziest books. One of them is an original Star Wars shooting script. So what they would use while they're shooting. And I did a video called George Lucas Had a Plan, and I mean, this doesn't mean he didn't have a plan, but holy smokes, man. There's a lot of crazy changes. Now, some of them are smaller, and other ones are larger. I think the overall feel came to him over time, but this is crazy because they were changing a lot of stuff while they were shooting. Now, I give George Lucas a mulligan on the original Star Wars because, and I know there were huge changes in Empire and Jedi as well, but the overall story of Luke Skywalker remained more or less the same. They changed a few things, obviously made Vader his dad, made Leia his sister, but the overall story arc for him remained generally the same. But I give him a mulligan on the first one because the first one he was trying something completely new, something completely different. He was essentially creating a genre. I know it existed in book form and stuff like that with Dune and some other stuff. And yes, there was a small amount of it that was being done in video format or in film format. But he really changed the game and created a genre. And so I can see why, you're doing a essentially independent film. You're spending a lot of your own money on this. This is hit or miss, and if it misses, you're in big trouble. And so I can kind of identify with the idea that there'd be some paranoia along the way, and you'd be making a lot of changes as you went along. Now, having said all that, ultimately, it ended up being culture changing. It ended up being phenomenal. But listen to what this guy says. It's really amazing, some of the stuff that George Lucas did in fact change, or was changing on the fly along with everybody else that was involved in making the original Star Wars.
I was in high school when the first Star Wars movie came out, so you can imagine my excitement when just a couple years ago I acquired the original shooting script for the first Star Wars movie. You can see right here it says property of Lucasfilm. Now, I've been through every single page. I would say about half of it is different. It varies from even the shooting script.
That's crazy to think about. So even the shooting script is vastly different than what we got on screen. He's saying half the movie is different than the shooting script. So this is a lot of stuff going on at the same time. And you might even suggest that this is kind of a minor miracle or a major miracle that this film turned out the way that it did and was so game-changing because, man, it's crazy. So now he's going to get into like a couple of things that actually got changed. Now, I'm fascinated by this. I'm probably going to look into this more and do some more videos about this. But just as a first little glimpse here, listen to what he has to say.
One of the greatest comebacks in Star Wars didn't happen because the actors went off script.
Now, I have heard of a lot of changes that they made in the actors going off script. I know that Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, people have come out and talked about how there were certain lines that they felt were clunky, and so things were adjusted and changed. And even the I love you, I know, I mean, that took them, they were shooting all day before finally Harrison Ford just said it. And then they realized, oh my gosh, we got this. And it was just off script. He was told to just feel what he wanted to feel. So they were really, and that was during Empire, so they were really going along, and it really shows how Star Wars was really a group project. And let's face it, I mean, when there was no one that felt like they had the authority to tell George that the lines weren't super good, like in the prequels, for example, there is a lot of clunky dialogue, but like Natalie Portman at that stage in her career, or Hayden Christensen at that stage in his career, they're not going to say anything. Like some of the dialogue between them, especially when they're on Naboo, is, let's be honest, it's cringe. But they're not at a level they're going to say anything. Harrison Ford, even at that time, was at a level where he was, well, and plus it's Harrison Ford, look at his personality, but he was an older guy than they were, and he just felt like this needs to be changed. So that's very interesting.
This is one of the original shooting scripts, The Adventures of Luke Starkiller. In fact, it's Anthony Daniels' copy. And one of the great lines is gone. It should have stayed. It was so much better. Well, in the movie, Vader insults his former master teacher, and it's almost like Obi-Wan Kenobi challenges him back and says, if you strike me down, I shall come back more powerful than you can possibly imagine. Okay, pretty good comeback. But that's not what is in this script. When they meet each other, Vader insults him and says, your powers are weak, old man. You should have never come back. And then, instead of saying, if you strike me down, I shall come back more powerful than you could possibly imagine, he says, you only know half the Force, Darth. You perceive its full power as little as a spoon perceives the taste of food. What do you think about that?
I actually like the line that was left in the movie. He's excited about this. He's mentioned this before. I don't think that that's as good of a line. As much as a spoon perceives the taste of food. I like it better when he says, if you strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. Because that implies something new, something that Vader would have no idea what he's even talking about. And then we see that manifested in his able to communicate with Luke and Yoda as a Force ghost. So, to me, I don't know about that. I'm a little... no, I prefer what was put in. But you can just see right then and there, that's a pretty major line that was changed on the fly. Maybe by Alec Guinness himself, who played Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I know, and even Alec Guinness to some degree has alluded to the fact that it was a little bit chaotic making that movie, and he wasn't always a huge fan of it. So you can imagine being on set and you're dealing with these lines of dialogue, and so I really do wonder if he's the one who kind of implored the change from George, again, as a very well-established actor who felt he had the authority to do so.
So from the time George Lucas wrote his first draft for Star Wars, July 1974, till the movie came out 3 years later, he made like 10 million changes, and I'm going to show you a couple of the crazy ones that you won't believe. So, you know how the movie starts out, it was a galaxy far, far away, and then it says, it is a period of civil war. Rebel spaceships striking from a hidden base have won their first victory against the evil galactic empire. You want to know how it was 3 years earlier? Check this out. This is crazy. Until the recent Great Rebellion, the Dai Nogas were the most feared warriors in the universe. For 100,000 years, generations of Dai perfected their art as the personal bodyguards of the king. They were the chief architects of the invincible Royal Space Force, which expanded the king's power across the galaxy from the celestial equator to the farthest stars.
So instead of Jedi, they were just Dai, and I like Jedi better. There was a king, so it was a little different setup. That's a huge change, actually. Going from a monarchy to a republic is a massive change. I mean, it just completely changes the story. Imagine the prequels with a monarchy. Like, that's huge. That's completely different. The whole setup would have been different. The whole scheming and maneuvering of Palpatine would have been different. I mean, it's not even close. So that's a huge change. This is wild stuff.
Now these legendary warriors are all but extinct. One by one, they have been hunted down and destroyed as enemies of the new galactic kingdom by a ferocious and sinister rival warrior sect, the Legions of Latau. Are you kidding me? That is not even close to what it was.
So it sounds like it's basically just two rival monarchies. One of them run by the Latau, which would be the Sith, and the other one, the good one, I guess, run by the Jedi, or the Dai, who were the Jedi. That is a totally different situation. And then you think about George Lucas when he's interviewed about the prequels and how he wanted to show how a republic like the United States could fall into fascism with this guy, Palpatine, running that operation. Very different than rival monarchies. Totally crazy different.
And just to give you an idea about what would become the Jedi Creed, we go about 28 pages in, Skywalker talking to one of the recruits. You were trained well, but remember, a die, D-A-I, a die must be single-minded. A discipline your father obviously never learned, hence your existence. Clean yourself up. Discipline is essential. Your mind must follow the way of the Nogas. How crazy is that? This is just the beginning. If you guys want more videos on differences between the movie and the original script, just let me know in the comments.
So from what I understand, the Nogas sort of represented like the Jedi Order, but then there was the Die. So I don't know if they were like the leadership of the Die, but they were protectors of the king, and those would have been some of the ones that died. So it's a little bit confusing. Like Nogas sounds like it's kind of the Order, and then Die is like a guy, one of the individuals in it. Either way, pretty crazy stuff. Okay, and also the scene there depicts Luke Skywalker talking to a new trainee, or a new Die Padawan. I guess Padawan maybe wasn't the word they used. So this doesn't sound like a farm boy who doesn't know anything to me. Very interesting. It was completely different, right? Like he was training other Jedi, essentially. He was a Jedi training the new recruits at the beginning of the saga. Wild. Am I ever glad that got changed? Like the hero's journey, farm boy. I mean, you know what? I take it back, man. Like, I don't know if George planned anything anymore. This is so crazy. I hope this guy keeps putting out more of these videos. I'm pretty shocked here, and this really does show that this was sort of an off the cuff, on the fly. There was a lot going on when you've got your shooting script with Luke as a full-fledged Jedi training new recruits, and then you go from that to Luke is a farm boy on Tatooine and doesn't even understand who he is and what his lineage is and all that other stuff. What a monster change. That is crazy. Anyways, guys, let me know in the comment section what you think. And yeah, get a hold of this guy on Instagram. Tell him to talk more about this so we can get more information from this thing. This is wild stuff. Wild stuff. Is it ever... I'm ever glad it turned out the way it did, though. But anyways, let me know in the comment section what you think. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. It helps the channel. Feel free to check out anything else on my channel. Have yourselves a really good day.